Before we begin, a content warning. This episode discusses sensitive topics including murder, sexual assault, and violence. Listener discretion is advised. Crime has always been popular in films and stories, most of the time taking inspiration from true events. Our society's growing fascination with true crime becomes a larger query of why do we watch it and what does it say about us?
Well, I think we're all intrigued by this human evil that seems to be out there from the beginning of time, and that we are fascinated by it as to what makes these people tick.
Welcome, listeners. I'm Erin Feeley, and this is Real Monsters Unmasking True Crimes. In this episode, we will be taking a deeper dive into killer-depicted films and television, exploring the motives and intentions behind them, and how they shape our perception of human nature. Taking a deeper dive into Ryan Murphy's series Monsters, we are shown the events which lead to the imprisonment of Eric and Lyle Menendez. On August 20th, 1989, Eric and Lyle walked into their family den and shot their parents over a dozen times. The brothers' court testimonies added a much darker appeal to the story. In their defense, the brothers tell the world the horrors of their childhoods, how their father sexually abused them, and how their mother looked away. The case became national news, and everyone wondered if they deserved to go to jail. Fast forward to 2024, and their case has been brought back into mainstream media due to the success of Murphy's series. But again, a discord between Americans rose, and people wondered if the show was made to educate viewers or to exploit their story. A direct quote from Eric Menendez states, "I believed we had moved beyond the lies and ruinous character portrayals of Lyle, creating a caricature of Lyle rooted in horrible and blatant lies rampant in the show. I can only believe they were done so on purpose. It is with a heavy heart that I say, I believe Ryan Murphy cannot be this naive and inaccurate about the facts of our lives, so as to do this without bad intent." Now let's take a listen to what co-founders of Queen's World Film Festival, Katha and Preston Cato, have to say on the matter.
So many among us do not question what they see or hear. And since it fits their agenda, then it becomes truth, and it becomes far bigger than the original lie. And I don't think this movie is harming us. I think this movie is I think this series might be riding that wave. And I'm not sure that filmmaker really cares if you believe that the Menendez brothers are guilty or innocent. This is his take on it.
Yeah, it's possible because they're based on what we currently see in the news about this particular case. That there seems to be a justification. Or at least a justification for the brothers for taking the actions that they did. Now, whether or not that means that they spend the remainder of their lives in jail for the crimes they committed, or is this information that seems to have been brought forth, why wasn't it brought forth sooner?
After listening to these two perspectives on Murphy's motive for creating the show, what would you say his reasoning is? Do you think he created this story through his own eyes or through the brothers? Another notable work of cinema that is based on a true killer is Woman of the Hour by Anna Kendrick. This film pictures the 1978 episode of The Dating Game, where serial killer Rodney Alcala starred as one of the potential bachelors.
Let's see, bachelor number one is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13, fully developed. Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Please welcome Rodney Alcala. For having them say hello to you and see how they sound. Number one, would you say hello to Cheryl, please? We're going to have a great time together, Cheryl.
Kendrick stars in this film as Cheryl Bradshaw, the woman on the dating show who ended up choosing Alcala at the end of the episode. Kind of ironic, right? But what this tells me is how convincing serial killers can become once they understand how to perform emotionally. When Alcala was caught, they found hundreds of images of girls who were either confirmed or assumed to be his victims. It's estimated he murdered over 130 women, although he was only connected to 8. Alcala was a killer, but Kendrick's film doesn't focus on that. Instead, we capture the perspective of women who had met him at different points in his life. Kendrick has implied that the reasoning for this is because crime cinema has always given us the perspective of the killer, and it was time that women's fears and instincts were truly represented. In an interview with Verity, Kendrick states that some of the male producers didn't understand the subject in certain scenes. She continues by saying, "Sometimes they would be like, 'I'm not sure that moment totally plays.' And I was like, 'I'm telling you that it does.' And if there are any men in the audience who don't understand what's happening in this moment, that's fine with me. I would rather have it be more of a reflection of my lived experience and what I imagine many women's lived experiences are." When looking at a work like Ryan Murphy's Monsters compared to Anna Kendrick's Woman of the Hour, are there any clear differences of intention? Here is Michael Grant, a filmmaker and college student, to comment on the intentions of crime cinema.
So speaking from a filmmaker's point of view, when you're making a film, there's always a reason on why. People are not just gonna make anything just because. And when you're taking a piece of material and creating, a film, TV show about it, you have like a sense of responsibility, to make sure that, number one, you're treating the actual situation with care and the delicacy that it needs, but also that you are telling a story and you are making entertainment, and you have to make it dramatic. Sometimes that can be information and you change it to be more or less than it is for the show or film. So for filmmakers who do that, I would just say you gotta have morals. Like, I wouldn't want, like, let's say someone's making a story about me, I wouldn't want people to portray me as someone that I wasn't. Or and sometimes people portray people in different ways to save them. Like, some people aren't good people and they make them better, so the society doesn't look on them in a certain way. But yeah, I would just say, filmmakers out there, just go to the source, do justice to your material.
Reflecting on our conversations of what it takes to create a film with serious content such as death and murder, I was intrigued by something Preston Cato said.
His intent was to show it. I'm going to show it. I'm going to put it right in your face to show what this is really like. It's awful. And he did it with the intent of pushing it into our face. The studios, the Hollywood went, "Oh my God, this is great. Let's do more." And so ultimately, and Peckinpah admits, he says it, that his violent, as life was going, as his career went on, his films got more and more violent. And I can remember seeing a film with Dustin Hoffman in it, where we were seeing this meek, mild mathematician having to go through the ordeals of his wife eventually being hoped to be sexually used by the town bullies, that what it takes to make a meek person turn and become a monster. And then Peckinpah, in public, on television, apologized. He said his intent was to show us right in our face this violence. And the more violent it was, he hoped it became more appalling. And he says his theory, his idea was flawed. And he apologized.
He mentioned Sam Peckinpah, a famous film director and screenwriter who was known for his extremely violent at the time films. As Preston makes clear, Peckinpah felt he had made a mistake using so much cruelty in his work. As a viewer, how does the violence in media make you feel? 2024 statistics from YouGov recorded that 57% of Americans watch true crime television, and that 1 out of 3 people don't watch it.
Since I remember, it was part of our lexicon. I'm gonna kill you. Oh my God, I'm so mad I could just kill you. I'm gonna murder those guys. You know? And so that's always been part of our lexicon. And beating up and all of these things have always been part of our art and our comics. We've always, made the beating up of the little guy funny. And that's always been the thing.
Imagine like something happens in someone's life and 20, 30 years go by and they're finally at peace. They want to put it to rest. That's behind them. And now Hollywood wants to come and serialize your hurt, your like the stuff you went through in your past. They want to serialize, like serious things and not even like have the respect to go to you. That's very, very messed up.
No matter the circumstances or intentions we have for these films, this imagery of murder has allured viewers for centuries. As Kathakato elaborates, this attraction to violence has been with us since birth. It's a human instinct that has become normalized in modern-day society. Michael Grant adds that when companies create films based on real events, and then fill it with misinformation or dramatization, the morality of the film comes into question. To ask ourselves if these kinds of movies and shows should be watched is a valid question. We already know that as humans we are naturally intrigued, but then comes the topic if violence should be in our media at all. Fortunately, this podcast won't be going over that debate, but it's a good piece of information to think about. Even Ted Bundy blamed his murderous urges on the X-rated media he was exposed to as a child.
Evil is sexy because it's ahead of you. It's heading you off the pass. It's sophisticated. The weaponry is very sophisticated. Gaslighting is very. You almost stay engaged because you want to get through to the truth, because you still believe that the truth always prevails. And this is the age-old question, the fight between good and evil. And each generation of filmmakers must figure out how they're going to tell that story and how they're going to raise that question. Have we vanquished evil? Are you strong enough to always fight for good?
I hope this episode has been as thought-provoking to you as it was for me. There is still so much left to converse about over the morality of these films and why crime dramas are one of the leading genres in television, but we'll save that for the next episode. As we close, I want to leave you with a thought. True crime films don't just document events. They shape how we remember them. They decide who we see as a victim, who we see as a villain, and what parts of the story are worth telling. But think about this. For every story that makes it to the screen, there are countless others that don't. Whose voices are we missing? And what would those untold stories reveal about justice, humanity, or even ourselves? When you watch these films, ask yourself, who gets to write the truth, and why? A special thank you to the Catos from Queens World Film Festival and to Michael Grant from MGTV Studios for joining me in this conversation. And lastly, I would like to thank you for listening to Real Monsters Unmasking True Crimes. This is Erin Feeley, signing off.